Awesome, and we are live again with Abel, the legendary trainer Abel Sanchez. Abel, you're in New York currently. First question, is it exciting still to go to New York for fights like it's been for all these years? Does it still have the same electricity and excitement?
Well, of course, New York is a special place, but I'm excited because my fighter's first time in New York, so that's exciting for him. So hopefully everything goes well.
Awesome. And just on that topic, I mean, obviously you've been all around the world for fights. Where would you say is the best place to have a fight or to be a trainer and be in a corner for a fight?
Well, I think as a coach, it's always best to be at home, so that way you don't have to travel, you don't have to get in an airplane. Everything is familiar. You can train up until the press conference, so it's best to be at home. But New York and Las Vegas, I think, has been places that I love to have fights at. It's fun traveling all over the world, but I think the U.S. is probably the best place that I've had fights at.
That actually makes me. There's a boxing trainer I had many years ago. Once made an observation about altitude training, which obviously that's your bread and butter. And what he had told me, and I'm totally ignorant, so I'm learning on the fly right here. But he had essentially said altitude training is, it's great. It helps, build up red blood cells and all of this. But if the fight is somewhere out of altitude or not nearby, and you leave after that week lead up to the fight, fight week, you pretty much lose the benefits of it. I don't know if it's true or not. I mean, I assume you're probably the expert on it. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, as far as an expert, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but it's experience of having a lot of different fighters up there. And it generally takes about 10 days to get acclimated, and it generally takes about 10 days to get rid of it or for it to not to be effective for you. So if we go to a site, most of the time it's a week, 7 days. So you still have the benefits of it. But listen, I think it's all in the fighter's mind. If the fighter believes it helps him, then it helps him. If you can go on the internet and 50% of the people say, doctors even, 50% of the people say that it's not good for you, and 50% of them say it's good for you. So it's whatever the fighter feels the benefits of. And once you get up there, unless you've experienced it, you have no clue of what you're talking about.
Hey, that's fair enough. And I think also psychologically, like you said, if someone believes something, it's true. If someone believes something's helping them, it's helping them. Like
Right.
if it's making them fight better, you got to trust that part of it. Um, so I will say, you're known for having a very, I wouldn't say quiet, but a very calm demeanor. But you're also known as being like a tough coach, right? You don't go easy on guys.
No.
Um, so you don't have to name any names, of course, but what is it like having Abel Sanchez as your coach when you screw up in training, and you're correcting them, you're frustrated with the fighter? What is that tonality like?
They're young men. They're all going to make their mistakes. The thing is, my father used to say, "I expect you to make a mistake to know when it's wrong, so that way we know when it's right." So I expect them to make mistakes, but I also expect them to try. If you don't try, you're never going to know. But the gym is for me has always been a military zone. Like you're there for a reason. Our trainings generally are no longer than 2 hours because we're there to work. So it's as you're doing that kind of hard work, you're gonna make tend to make mistakes. So it's okay with me. I don't scream. I don't holler. I just push.
Awesome. So like if say you and again you have to name names, but say you have a fighter who's kind of screwing off. I've heard stories from other trainers of fighters who will, take off, bring girls back, things that are clearly not going to be indicative of success. What does it turn into at that point when you're
You know,
correcting them?
fortunately for me, I've never had those situations. They're so afraid of my rap, I guess, that I've never had those situations. And I've been fortunate in my two different careers that I've had. I had a career with Terry Norris and a bunch of people that I had in Campo that all did very well. And I had my career here in Big Bear with Gennady and the guys that did well. Lucky for me, I've had the kind of fighter, the kind of leader as Terry was and as Orland was in San Diego, and as I have here or I had with Gennady, that the guys are really, they see them working that hard, so they want to work that hard. They don't, they understand why they're there, their success, so they work just as hard. And I've fortunately, knock on wood, I've never had those issues. I've never had those guys step out of line in that manner. Yes, sometimes they don't run, they're late for the run or they're late for the training, but most of the time, like I said, I've been blessed. I've never had those situations.
Awesome. I've always thought about that too. So that's very intentional to have a lot of fighters fighting around the same time, so they're in camp at the same time, right? So you can sort of have the alpha setting the tone, and you see that with like
Correct.
Terrence Crawford and all of them in Nebraska. Is that so? I'm assuming that's all very intentional.
That's absolutely, absolutely. With Terrence in camp, and he's working as hard as anybody else or harder. The other guys want to be there too, want to be successful too. So they tend to emulate what the leader is doing. So it makes it easier for a coach, but it also you have to set the tone. If
Yeah.
you have a good fighter, that fighter has to believe in you.
That's a great, so that's something I've heard. I've interviewed a lot of trainers at this point, and them believing in you and your approach is like critical. So, how do you build trust with a fighter and get them to believe in your process?
Well, most of the time, I don't get fighters from the beginning. Somebody told me a long time ago when I had Terry, and a little after that, is that they call me a polisher. I'm not really one that starts fighters. I get them when they've got some fights, and I take them to places. I think that the fact that I work just as hard as they do in the gym, the fact that I'm not trying to take anything away from them, but to add things to them. I think that if a team, a football team or basketball team has a lot of plays, it's a lot easier to do your thing. So they come to me with certain skills, and I try to improve on those. I try to improve on those. I've always liked the puncher, so my conditioning and my method of throwing punches and my method of delivery and timing and stuff like that has always been geared towards punchers. Like my favorite fighter of all time is Alexa Arguello. I loved his left hand. He did a lot of great things with his left hand, and then when he threw his right hand, it was good night Irene. So I tried to mold myself in that manner. I don't like decisions. I like punchers, and I make punchers.
So. I actually just heard a debate. I think it was on it was Joe Rogan had Jim Lampley, and they were talking about that. Are guys born a puncher? Or can you build a puncher? And they're both kind of on different sides of it. So like, I don't want you to give up your secret sauce, but like, is there a way to make somebody a real puncher if they aren't?
Well, sometimes heavy hands are God given. But just because you have heavy hands doesn't mean you have the timing, the technique, the ability to pinpoint your punches. Gennady Golovkin was born with very heavy hands, but at the beginning he just didn't know where to place them and how to place them and when to place them. Hard work in the gym developed him into a puncher that landed the punch that he wanted to land. I think that it's possible to make a puncher, not in the let's just say Matias or Valero or Finita Lopez. Those guys are born with a snap and a big punch, but you can develop a puncher. And the proof for me is that I probably have a 80 something percent knockout average in all my wins, and I have about an 80% average also on wins. So you can't say that I select all the punches because I've never gone after a fighter. The fighters call me, I interview with them, and we make arrangements. But I've never gone after a fighter, so I don't go after punchers, but they end up being punchers. So
So Mexican style, obviously, a great approach to building Triple G, changing him from what I understood was an amateur fighter who really boxed, but and he had the power, like you said, but wasn't really an attacker that was going to sell tickets like he became. But also, Mexican style crossed him over in a way that you've never seen a white fighter, let alone like a Kazakh fighter, entertain so many fans in Southern California and build a local fan base. And nobody had done it before, and I don't know who's done it since. Was that done just spare the moment, or was that like a business idea to build his brand?
No, originally when I first got him, I worked after about a week and a half. I worked mitts with him in the ring, and when I caught him, I thought the bells went off in my head. I said, "This is Julio Cesar Chavez at 160 pounds." That's the first thing that
Yeah.
came into my head. So I tried to uh, to mold him in a way that he was going to emulate what Julio did. And I remember writing on the board. Number 1 through 12 and putting Muhammad Ali at the top, leaving number 2 vacant, and then putting the names of the fighters that were relevant at that time from there down. And I said to him, if you give me 3.5, 4 years, I promise you that in those years, you're going to be number 2. You're going to be the best middleweight. You're going to not have a lot of knockouts. Nobody's going to want to fight you because I think that we can get there. But you have to give me time. You can't be interfering. And for 9.5 years, that young man never said a peep, never questioned, never did anything but follow rules, follow orders. and we were able to be successful that way. If you remember the Gio fight here in New York at the Garden, while Max is interviewing him, I stood behind him, and as he's talking to Max, I whispered in his ear, "Don't forget Mexican style," and that's really where it originated, him saying it, and then it just blossomed from there. But it was on purpose that we that I tried to make him an attraction because here in America we're in the entertainment business. If you're fighters, you're in entertainment. You
Yeah.
need to entertain, and that's what I felt we needed to do.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I think there are marketing teams at corporations that couldn't have come up with like a better idea. It was so brilliant. It just crossed over. He clearly owned it too. You know, like he did everything he needed to on his end.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, it was brilliant. So, um, this is a crazy thing. I'm sure this isn't a question you haven't been asked before, but like you got into boxing from being a general contractor, right? I mean, so you didn't have the background in boxing, but crossed over very hard.
Yeah, actually, back in the late 70s, I started kickboxing and went to a
Oh,
gym to kickbox. And actually, it was a Dave Parker gym in Pasadena. Then a guy there told me about a boxing gym in El Monte, and I went to this boxing gym and I fell in love. Yes, I did kickbox for a little while, but I fell in love with the boxing, with the boxing part of it, and started working with the coach that was there, who is my assistant in the corner now, Ben Lira. And then in '82, I retired because my business was suffering. I wasn't busy enough. You can't have two 100% businesses like that. Even though it's just amateur boxing, it took a lot of time.
yeah.
I had just finished the houses where the movie E.T. was filmed. I did all the framing and a lot of the concrete on those houses.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, so that was successful, but I was spending so much time in the gym that it was difficult for my business to continue to prosper. So I retired probably in late '81. Didn't come back until middle of '86 with a young fighter named Lupe Aquino. We were able to take him to a world title. That was my first fighter coming back from by myself. Took him to a world title when I came back from our trip to France, where we fought Dwayne Thomas, Emmanuel Stewart's Dwayne Thomas. I was approached by the same management team to train Orland and Terry Norris. At the time, Orland and Terry Norris maybe had 4 and 10 fights or 9 fights, something like that. I started training them, and Terry became my second world champion, and my second fighter and my second world champion. And my third fighter was Orland Norris. He became world champion. Then I was given a young man named Paul Vaden. Was hired to train him, and unfortunately, I didn't take him the title because I I didn't agree with the direction they were going in. So I had him for 9 or 10 fights with 10 knockouts. And at the time when I started with him, he was 9-1 or 9-0 with only one knockout. So when he got to about 19 or 20-0, I didn't like the direction they were going, and they were pushing him too hard. So I excused myself, and he became world champion also probably 2 or 3 fights later. So I've had my run of making good fighters.
Absolutely. And in that, did you have any type of an apprenticeship where you were learning from other trainers, or was it a lot of learning on the job with the amateurs?
From the beginning, I watched a lot of video, go libraries and take out tapes and take out reel to reels and watch old fighters. I like watching the 50s and 60s, the Ray Robinsons, Tony Zale's one of my favorites, Lamada and
Yeah.
all those guys, Graziano. I watched movies and I watched their film, and I would watch movies and I would watch what they were doing. A lot of the exercises that we do in our strength and conditioning are based off of some videos that I saw from the '30s. So I'm an old-fashioned coach. I like the old-fashioned style, and I like to replicate a lot of the things that they were doing because it's a serious business for me.
And when you do that, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of things that you do that there's crossover. Like for example, you train guys at altitude. You look at Manny Stewart; he trained guys in heat, right? Like a very very hot gym, something that's both psychological and physically challenging. Did you get a lot of those concepts and ideas just from like the altitude? Did that come from just paying attention to the older fighters and trainers?
Yes and no. And if you notice on my shirt here, the ES, that's for my friend Emmanuel Stewart, that I put that on my logo when the day after he died, just because he was a sort of a mentor for a lot of us. Maybe he wasn't with us all the time, but he was willing to sit down and coach and give you advice and give you tips and stuff like that. So I enjoyed his company and the fact that I fought him. I think we're 3-2 or something like that in fights against each other, but he was willing to sit and guide you and mentor you. So no, the altitude part of it, I went to Big Bear to train Miguel Gonzalez. I took Miguel Gonzalez to train up there when he fought Oscar De La Hoya. And one, I fell in love with the city. Two, I bought a bunch of property up there because I was a building contractor to be able to build homes and sell them. So I could do both of my businesses there. And it ended up when I bought the property that the gym was built on. I didn't use it for about 6, 7 years, and when I started using it, we had a lot of success. We had 6 world champions out of that gym. So Gennady had a lot to do with it. The place had a lot to do with it. The altitude had a lot to do with it. But more than anything, I think it's the solitude up there. There's no distractions. The friends are not there. The families are not up there. They're up there to do one single thing, and that's to train to get ready for a fight.
Awesome. And so, yeah, that was something I was really curious about because obviously you had your career was absolutely blossoming when you started, and then unfortunately you had the heart attack, right? So that sort of
Yes.
took you away. I was wondering about that part though, because even after that, you still kept the Summit Gym for many, many years, right? But I'm assuming
Well,
it
no,
wasn't a gym then.
no. When I started I actually had the heart attack in the middle of building the gym. Uh, the reason that I started, and actually the reason that I started to build the gym was for Emmanuel Stewart, who was training De La Hoya up there at the time.
Ah,
And Lennox came up, and I built it for Lennox and for Emmanuel. But I was going to lend it to my friends once I got it done. And once I almost finished it, Emmanuel just was the kind of coach that he was everywhere. He needed a helicopter and a jet up there on a
yeah.
24-hour basis. He just could not be pinned down. So I didn't open the gym when I finished it in 2001. I didn't open it. I just left it for my children to use as a resort house. But in the 6, 7 years that it was open with gas, electric, water, everything cable, they must have used it 3 times a year. They had their own lives to live, and it was difficult for them to vacation like that, like I thought that they could. So in 2008, my youngest son and I decided we were going to build a gym for our friends, for my friends, for boxing friends. And I was doing well in construction again. That's right before the economy hit the skids.
Yep.
And so we started building it. We're almost finished. And then 2009 came and the economy hit the skids. And I decided that I was going to retire from construction and just start training fighters there. I got guys like Baldomir, Abregu, Joel Diaz. I got some youngsters, and then Gennady walked into my gym in 2010, right around May, and that changed everything.
But so what I think is a little bit crazy though is you had stepped away from boxing because of health concerns, but still got pulled back in. And I'd imagine the health concerns would still be a concern, right? So what was it that really brought you back to it?
Well, actually, in 2001, I had a stent put in my one of my arteries. So when I started doing construction again, I felt better, and I came back because since I opened the gym, I had guys calling me and fighters calling me and managers calling me, wanting me to train fighters. And I got several good fighters at the time. They weren't stars, but they were had decent records, and so I wanted to be involved. I couldn't continue doing the construction because I was building homes up there for, say, let's just say 300 and couldn't sell them for 150 when the economy hit
Yeah.
the skids. So it didn't make sense. I had to do something. So I had to devote my time 100% to the boxing end of it. And Gennady, like I said, Gennady walked in and it changed a lot of things.
That is so crazy. So a lot of it was it's interesting how such a bad thing that's seen as so adverse and negative for like our whole country and the world, like the economy absolutely tanks. And then a new dream is realized because of that. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, out of there's always a silver lining, I guess. The clouds always
Yeah.
have a silver lining, and if you just put in the work and put in the time, things work out to your advantage if you're willing to. It wasn't easy, but it was a lot of time that I put into that, and it became successful, man.
Awesome. So that's really interesting. So then obviously Gennady comes in. It does, like you said, change many things. I want to ask because when you first started, I was much younger, so I wasn't watching boxing as much. When you made your comeback, obviously Triple G is how I became very familiar with you. Terry Norris was like a little bit before my time, and
Right.
and those guys. But I remember watching all the training camps, or at least the footage they would show on HBO. And there were some things that were so simple yet effective. It blows my mind. Like for example, I can recall. You all were going out to eat, having some, it looked like it was Mexican food. It looked delicious and something that probably most people would say, hey, this isn't healthy. You shouldn't eat this in training camp. And I can specifically remember you saying, hey, his diet is just don't eat sugar. If he doesn't eat sugar, everything's all good. And sure as day, he made weight at 160 for like ever. And a lot of guys don't. So, like, where does something like that come from? Like, that was such a simple, basic health hack that worked. Was like, what was the thing about that?
Well, Emmanuel Stewart used to tell me, "Keep it simple, stupid." You know, the KISS method.
Kiss,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, and I've always believed. Okay, I had a Ukrainian, a Russian, Nigerian, Puerto Rican, Mexican, different nationalities in my gym. I wasn't gonna have eight chefs.
Yeah.
So, so we have two big houses where they were housed, and I just heard. Actually, I just heard this one from one of the fighters that Gennady used to buy groceries for everybody when he was in camp. So they'd go to the store, buy groceries for everybody, and then they cook for each other. We had three or four different guys that would cook, and they would share whatever recipes that they had. If you read some of the articles that Golovkin's put out, he never took any supplements. None of my guys ever took any supplements. None of my guys any took anything besides food and a lot of water. I think that if you grow up eating a certain type of food, just gotta keep the sugars and the pasta to a minimum, the breads to a minimum. But yeah, he always made. I never had a guy not make weight. I check their weight every day. And I make sure that they eat, and I make sure that I take them on a run, and I watch them run. I follow them in my truck, so I know who's good and who's not good, and who's doing well and who's not doing well. But yeah, I believe that they have to have nutrition, just not crutches like supplements and vitamins and all that a lot of coaches think they do. And lucky for me, Gennady was going along with that, so everybody else went along with that.
Like you said, yeah, you got the alpha dog does it. Everyone
Correct.
else is going to follow the lead.
Correct.
Um, the another thing I noticed, and this is I'm probably the only person who actually cares about this, but it was always interesting to me because I can also recall one where he's on the treadmill, and I'm assuming this isn't his first run of the day, and he's really sweating. Like I don't recall if he had sweats on, but he was just sweating a lot. And you had made a remark, you're like, this is his oil change. So he's going to deplete all the water out of him, and then he can rehydrate, and it's like changing the oil.
Right.
I'm a big guy, a big proponent of sweating. I feel like it's very valuable. I love doing cardio for that reason. My wife always tells me, she goes, no, that it has nothing to do with anything. Your body's just reacting, you know? Where how do you feel like that worked out, or where'd you get that concept from?
I've always felt that it cleanses you. You know, it cleanses it just cleanses the system. Um, I've always kept a very warm gym. I always have heaters on in my gym. I like a warm gym. I've never had a strength and conditioning coach. I've always done my own strength and conditioning, my own machines that I've built and designed and built. I've never had a nutritionist again because I didn't think you needed one. So when they did that, it was because of um, they run in the morning and they run in the evening sometimes just to cleanse. Just it makes them sleep better. It makes them it was refreshing, I guess you could say. And until you do it, until you are actually doing it, you don't realize the benefits of it. I could see it.
Absolutely. And again, all of this is really just trial error and looking at old coaches and fighters and going, okay, what
Absolutely.
works?
Absolutely. Listen, all of us coaches, all of us, I don't care who it is, and the most celebrated coaches in the world, when they first started, they ruined a lot of careers. Why?
Why?
Because we were learning. We were learning. We were using kids as experiments where they were guinea pigs. And once we, and I think that's the problem today is that not enough coaches are studying. Not enough coaches are going to other gyms. Not enough coaches are working corners even if you're Emmanuel Stewart, work the corner for somebody. Be the second man on the bottom or the second man on the side, just so that you see, I think, different situations that may come up. Because if you just work your own fighters, you're expecting them to get better, but you're not getting better. You know,
Absolutely.
so you see me working corners for other guys, and I get all tweets all the time about, well, you're so and so, you shouldn't be working a second banana outside. Why not? Why not? Let me learn from the outside too. I think that that's important when we're asking the fighters to improve and we're not improving our own game.
Love that. I think that's great too. To never have an ego that's so big. I know everything. No one person knows everything, and you'll learn.
Nobody
Even if
knows.
someone's doing it wrong, you can see them doing it wrong, and then realize, oh, that's not working. But you have to pay
Correct.
attention.
Correct.
Do you,
Correct.
I feel like, back in like all the way up to the 50s, maybe the 60s, it was more common for trainers to have apprentices, and obviously I think Manny had a few apprentices. Eddie Futch clearly, had several apprentices. Do you feel like that's almost necessary for boxing to sort of bridge that gap so fighters don't have that growing pain of a new trainer who's figuring it out?
I've never had an assistant in the 45 years. I've never had an assistant. And the reason being is that nobody's willing to work as hard as me. Nobody's willing to put in the time. And what happens, unfortunately, today in this new computer internet world, all of a sudden now the coaches are putting in their 2 cents into how coaching should be done, and they put a towel over their shoulder, and they think that. And I've always looked at things like that as detrimental to our sport, because all those people that are talking have never had any kind of results. I'm a big person in results. If a fighter tells me I'm great, I'm doing this, yeah, what have you done? Same thing with a coach. I think that you have to produce instead of just talk.
Absolutely. So, and that kind of brings me to another thing. A lot of the really, really successful trainers who have a lot of years under their belt are adamant about, and I'm still trying to figure out exactly what it means, but everybody says the old school way is the way, right? You do it the old school way. All these new guys are trying to do, all these crazy things and reinvent the wheel. You have to have old school training methods. What does that mean when you define that, like an old school training method?
Um, uh, Old school, I would say, would be where the coach is the coach and the fighter is the fighter. One, the coach is, if you choose to go be coached by this particular coach, then follow him. Allow him to teach you, allow him to develop you, or else don't choose him, choose somebody else. But a lot of these kids have their own ideas because they hear so many things going on the outside. I have uh, been told that I'm very stubborn. Yes, I am very stubborn because at the end of the day, I hate that phrase, but at the end of the day, they're gonna blame it on me. When that young man doesn't look good, they're gonna blame it on me. They're not gonna blame it on nobody else. They're not gonna blame it on the fighter or nobody. But when he gets wins and he's in front of the camera, oh, I want to thank my promoter. I want to thank they're thanking everybody except the guy that's there with him 99% of the time. So if it's gonna be my fault, let it be my fault. I've been successful doing it that way, and old fashioned to me or old style would be. The hard work that the guys used to do in the 50s and 60s and 70s, the Ray Leonards, Durans, the Haglers. Look at Hagler train. Look at Hagler and Goody and Pat. He did everything that he was told to do. He was very successful. I think that Roger, who was a very good fighter, a great champion, and Floyd, mal-educated, if that's a good word, but educated in the wrong way. A lot of young coaches with the kind of mitts that they would do for show. They didn't realize that this was a show that they were doing. This is not anything he did in a fight. So all these coaches now are doing all these mitt works that really is a showcase for the coach and not the fighter. The fighter's not learning. Yes, maybe they're getting fast hands, but they're being sloppy with their punches. And yes, there's exceptions like Javante Davis, Shakur, some of these guys that are extremely talented would have been talented if Ray Charles would have been training them. Uh, but uh, but doing that, a lot of these coaches took on this method of training, and it's not productive in a fight. It may be productive in the gym if you have a bunch of clients, let's just say, but not for boxers, not for fighters, not for guys that are trying to entertain.
And do you think like a better focus, is probably working on maybe one specific punch repeatedly, or working on the fine tuning of one punch versus like putting on a whole show? Like I'm assuming it's probably a lot more attention to detail.
Oh, absolutely. I would say before the 90s or even before the 2000s, I think that the fighters were better. And why were they better? Because they were concentrating on the fundamentals. Let's say, for instance, in our era, Andre Ward with Virgil Hunter up in San Francisco, they concentrated on the basics. They concentrated on being great at two or three things instead of trying to do 20 things that are half-assed. He there's other coaches. Betty Stein has his own style up in Mexico, and if you go back 25 years, it's the same style that he's got today. The way they hold their hands.
Yeah.
So every coach has their pluses and minuses, but the coaches that are, in my opinion, have been successful as of late are the coaches that are sticking to fundamentals and making sure that we go out there and win one run at a time, and not be talking about winning a 12-round fight, but just win one run at a time with your basic fundamentals.
Absolutely. And with that, like when you game plan for a fight, and this is always a really interesting conversation. So typically, I'm assuming the game plan probably happens in levels. Like, hey, in the first two rounds, let's get the jab going and establish it and see, his range, yada yada. And then by about the third or fourth, then we're going to start going to the body. I'm just ballparking it here, but what
Yeah.
does a game plan look like for you when you game plan
Actually,
for a fight?
I'm totally different from that. Really,
Okay.
100% in the other direction. I've always believed, with Gennady, with everybody that ever had Terry Norris. If you watch Terry Norris fight Ray Leonard, Freddie Pacheco says he throws a combination that's so weird, but all my fighters throw the same combination. And what I've always said was, I need to make my guy 100% my guy. In other words, he has to do what he does best. I don't care what the other guy does, because we're going to impose our will from the first bell to the last bell, or as long as it goes. If I start saying, if you tell me, well, so and so that you're fighting has got a great right hand, now I start to adjust my fighter to deal with that right hand. Now my fighter's not 100%. So I try to prepare my guys physically and mentally to be 100% them. We're gonna do what we
Got it.
do best, and if you don't, if we can't beat you this time, then we'll beat you next time. But you're gonna have to handle us at our best. I don't give a heck what you're doing.
That's a great point. I've always thought about that too, because if you're adjusting for the other guy's skill set and what he does, I mean, it's a boxer. A boxer would
Right.
do that, right? A
Right.
boxer would move around the ring and find a way to stay away from, the power hand. But
Right.
you're now not doing your own game plan. You're
Right
you're
now,
essentially responding. You're
right.
reacting, but you're not
Right.
establishing.
Now I'm telling
Um,
him that guy's got a great right hand. Be careful with it. No, 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 no. We're gonna do what we do.
Absolutely. But I have to imagine there are some fighters that just aren't cut out to walk a guy down and cut off the ring, right? So what do you do if you get a fighter who's, not
I
that
don't,
guy?
I don't know if you ever noticed that. I shouldn't even say it this way, but unfortunately for my trade, my peers, we are a lot of us are a bunch of whores, and I say that not in a bad way, but we just take on anybody that we want, anybody that wants us to train them. I take on guys that I can mold to my style, because that's what I'm good at. I'm not going to take on a boxer that I'm not going to take on Skull, William Skull, because
Yeah.
he's not the kind of style that I would train, right? So I'm going to take on guys and agree to train guys that are going to be able to, that I'm going to be able to mold. So if you call me and you want me to work with you, I'm going to tell you, this is what I do. Boom, boom, boom. And this is how we fight. Boom, boom, boom. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, that's okay. Honestly, there's going to be another guy coming. But if I start taking all kinds of different styles, then how can I be good at all those styles? I can't. A fighter can't. A coach obviously can't either. So I'm going to take on guys that I think I can mold to the type of fighter that I want them to be. And if you watch any of my fighters, they're all basically attackers. They're all their presence is very well known to their opponents.
That's so interesting because I talked to, I forgot who it was, but I talked to someone about that. I think it was Russ Amber, and he was saying how I want to say it was him, how at Roy Jones Jr.'s gym, his dad trained everybody to fight the same way as Roy, but only Roy could fight that way. But the concept, of course, is you go to a specific trainer to get a specific style that works for you versus a trainer trying to do everything under the sun. You're going to be a lot better at working on one specific way of doing it if you just do that one repeatedly.
Yeah, I could make Pitbull Cruz to fight like Roy Jones. It'd be impossible.
Yeah, there's no way. Yeah, exactly. Um,
So you have to pick and choose. And sometimes, unfortunately, sometimes we as coaches will turn away some great talents because, or we should turn away some great talents because we can't do them justice. At least in my opinion. Hmm?
and that's another concept too. Is that one thing a lot of guys have said is when you get a fighter, you have to be able to draw a line and turn them down at some point. Because if you
Right.
don't have that line in the sand of, hey, I'm going to turn you down if X, Y, Z, and they violate that multiple times, now they don't respect you. They're going to do what they want. It defeats the purpose of the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. You have to be able to. It can't be just for the paycheck. And unfortunately, a lot of us, 90, 95, 98% of us really don't make the kind of money that we don't have to have a job. So I understand that. I understand it completely, seriously, but we have to be strong enough to be able to say no because it's going to make us look bad, one, and it may limit the other kind of fighters that we get.
Absolutely. Well, and what you said is so true. And I do feel for some trainers. There's some really good trainers out there who sort of have to put up with a lot of shenanigans because they need You know, if you're in Chicago, I'm from Chicago. If you're a trainer in Chicago and there's a very good local fighter, you don't get access to that too often. You know, so what you get, you know, you appreciate it and you sort of work with them and you sometimes have to bend your expectations a little bit for that fighter because when are you going to get the next great fighter, you know?
Yeah, that's the difficult part. But I'll be real honest with you. I've said it. I'll say it to you, and I've said it to several other interviews in the years that I've been doing this. There's a lot of better coaches out there than me. There's a whole lot of better coaches out there than me. I can tell you coaches in LA that I think are better, fundamentally sound coaches, but they don't have the well, how can I put it? I'm not gonna. I don't want to insult them by saying the backbone to say no. This is the way we're gonna do it. If you don't like it, get the hell out of my gym. You know, we don't. Sometimes we haven't the choice to say that because this is how we make a. This is how we feed our families. So they're willing to compromise their character and their compromise their style and the way that they coach or their discipline just because that kid may be making some money in a couple of years. And that's again because not all of us are lucky enough to be in a position that I have been blessed to be in.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think it's fair where you're coming from. I do think you're a great trainer though, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah, like it's tough, and I do feel for these guys. I really do, especially when they've done it their whole life. The other thing I kind of feel bad about with a lot of trainers that I've noticed, and this is at every level, is that it's you know the romantic side of it, or what you'd see in movies with like Rocky or something like that, is the trainer becomes this phenomenal father figure to a fighter, you know, and they're there for them, and a lot of these kids, especially you know inner city kids who don't their dads aren't in the picture, and you see it a lot in you know at the amateur level. But it seems like every coach at a certain point sort of becomes jaded. You know, the game changes, loyalty gets really fickle. A lot of trainers come around once your fighter gets really good. It also happens for guys like you. If you have a really good fighter and you got them and they were already good, there's always going to be someone trying to take your fighter, trying to manipulate it. Do you feel like that dynamic still exists where there are trainers that are it's more than just a paycheck, it's more than just winning fights, there's a real connection to caring about that fighter?
Oh, well, of course, but I think it stems from, in my opinion, it stems from or let me do it a different way. In a fighter's career, there's a manager who's protected with a contract. There's a promoter who's protected with a contract. There is a sponsor that's protected with a contract. But the coach who determines success or failure, 95% of the time with the fighter, is not protected by a contract. Joe Goosen, 35 years ago, wrote letters and tried to, and so have I, tried to find out why, write to the commissions. Why? Now, unless you get to the point now where Joe is now, my friend Joe, or I unfortunately am, where you get to a point where you get a good fighter that wants to work with you, now we have a contract because we can. But some of the young coaches that start with a young guy for, say, when he's 16, 17 years old and develop him, and now he's 10 and 0, 11 and 0, 12 and 0, and all of a sudden they don't need him no more. The manager wants a big name trainer in the corner. You know, I think that hurts our sport, one. And two, I think it's disillusional for a lot of the young coaches to put in the time that they need to put in. So I think that should be changed. I think that they should be protected more, the young coaches.
Yeah, I totally, and that doesn't make sense because you could technically write up a contract and have an agreement. You know, I don't see why not. It doesn't
Yeah,
necessarily have to be approved.
yeah.
It's a legally binding contract, but yeah, it's an unfortunate dynamic that trainers really aren't protected and really are the ones to get thrown under the bus when things go wrong.
Absolutely. When a fighter loses, it's always a trainer.
Yeah, and you know, and this is one other thing I'll say, and I've always thought this. I truly believe that the trainer should be. I mean, it's probably hard to have this capacity, but a trainer should be the manager as well. They should be the one to pick the opponents. They should be the ones to guide the career, so they can coach accordingly. They know the fighter best. You know, I believe that more success could come if more guys had dual roles. Although I understand that's probably hard to do when you got you know a stable of 10, 20 fighters.
Yeah, it's very difficult. I managed Orland Norris when he was a champion and trained him also, and it's difficult. It's a special skill to be a manager, and you have to spend the time to be the manager. But at the same time, let's just say I think about Oh gosh, when there was a commissioner in California, came from Florida. I forget his last name, Garcia, I think it was. Back then, I made some suggestions about a contract because I knew him from Florida when I worked in Florida with Don King, and I made suggestions something like in the realm of say it's a 5 year contract like a manager has. A 5 year contract, and if you decide to release me, you'll pay me for the next three fights or something like that. So that way, this at least is like a severance pay kind of deal. But
Yeah.
it never took hold. It just never took hold, and it's disillusional for a young coach to take somebody. And then I guess if you think about it, if he's getting good, do I really want to continue developing him? If I do, they're gonna take him from me as a young coach.
Yeah.
So you could thwart the success just for that reason.
How does, and that's something I always wonder, how does a young coach, because you're right, that's exactly what happens. So, hey, I'm doing a great job. Do you get recognized for doing a great job? No, you're going to actually lose your fighter to another guy now. How
Right.
does how does one come up the ranks as a trainer with that sort of predatorial aspect of you may lose your fighter, you'll probably lose your fighter? How do you ever build a fighter to prove yourself?
Well,
Like, how
at
does
the
a guy
beginning,
make it?
yeah, at the beginning of this conversation, I said to you, we as coaches don't develop ourselves. Okay, we have to develop ourselves. We have to make sure that we're doing things to make ourselves better so that we can coach better. So if we do that, then we're going to be recognized, I think, more not only by the fighter but the people around him as not being the same old guy that's doing the same old thing. I remember when I first started down in San Diego with Terry and with Lupe Aquino. I used to go down to Mexico and I used to be allowed to wrap a whole dressing room hands and work cuts with my own tape and my own medicine and everything down in Mexico for not the main event, but the undercard fighters. And because I had Terry and Lupi, they would allow me to wrap their hands. Now, every other week, I was wrapping 6, 7 sets of hands. So it made me learn. And today, now you have specialists that come into the fight and wrap hands and work cuts. The coach has to learn that. The coach has to learn how to do all those things because then the fighter only depends on one person. But if you don't
That's a
improve yourself,
great point.
yeah, if you don't improve yourself, then there's four other guys that are talking crap to your fighter, and maybe it's not something bad, but a little hint of negativity. All of a sudden, now the coach doesn't know what he's doing.
Even just a detractor, right? Even just someone
Absolutely.
going, yeah. Abel said to not a nutritionist, yeah. Abel said you can do it without sugar, but did you
Yeah,
know if you took this, and that? Now all of a sudden
of course.
it's clouded.
Listen, there's unfortunately right now Eddie Reynoso has got a rash of some guys that have tested positive. I don't blame Eddie for it. I think that there's so many people around these fighters that again, like you just said, if you take this, it'll be good for you. And all of a sudden, a fighter takes it, and it only takes one time, and now you're labeled. Munguia got labeled. I'm not sure that he took it on purpose. He's a good enough fighter. They didn't have to take it on purpose, but you have all these. Uh, uh, what we call hangers on that wanna be included, and it takes one time and you're screwed. As a coach, you can't afford to have that because now you get labeled. Your gym gets labeled.
Yeah, and it's so like, I mean, it's so many fighters that have worked with him. It's really like there's probably a pattern. I'm not going to accuse a guy I don't know anything about,
Yeah,
but there's
but
definitely something going on around there.
yeah, well, let me say this. When Munguia went to him, when Valdez went to him, when Rodriguez went to him, all these guys come with a group. Eddie's not going to train all. They have their assistants. They have the guys that come with him. Eddie is the head coach. Yes, he's working the corner. Yes, he's wrapping their hands probably, but they have assistants that are with them. They don't come by themselves. Munguia didn't go by himself. So, Eddie is depending as a head coach. You're depending on. This is my opinion because this is the way that I would do it if it was in this situation. You're depending on those people to continue to assist that fighter, but you're going to do the teaching, let's just say, or you're going to do the guiding. You're going to do the how many rounds they're going to go. You're going to do all that, but the other parts of it are being done by their accessories. So I honestly don't believe that. He was involved in all these seven fighters because they have people that work for them. So I don't know. No one. I don't think no one will ever know.
That is, what's crazy? Something just clicked as you were saying that. It made me think about it. Manny had made a remark. There was an excerpt I had read. I forgot which fight it was, but Tommy Hearns was getting ready for a very big fight, and of course, he has all his friends and family, and everybody has to look like they have a job. Everybody
Of
has to
course,
add
of
value because they
course,
want to stick around.
of
And
course.
Manny used to cook all their. I believe he cooked their food. He watched what they ate. He was with them all the way up to the fight. He wouldn't let them out of his sight. And he said he left the room once, and Tommy said, "Man, my legs are really tight." And this is
Oh, I
like a day
know
or
the
two.
story. I know that
You know the
story. Go
story, yeah,
ahead, yeah. Go ahead, yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. And long short, I want to guess it was the Hagler fight, but the friend
no,
comes over
no,
and
it was
goes,
the
"Oh, you're
first. It was the first Ray Leonard fight.
gotcha, gotcha," and that's what it was. And he said his
Yeah,
legs were gone for the fight because
gone.
the friend
Look,
came over,
look at
rubbed his
look.
legs, and
Yeah, look at that 12, 13, 14 round. He had nothing. His legs. He was dead. They
yeah,
were dead.
his legs were
Yeah,
gone.
and yeah, and he was very upset about it. But you know, you can't be with them 24/7. That's impossible.
Yeah,
The fighters. But if you limit the people that are around them, but all these guys want this entourage that they think is helping them. It's just costing them money. All it is costing them money because they have to provide hotels, food, travel for all this entourage. And come fight night, they climb in the ring by themselves.
it's so true. It is so true, and honestly, it's like it all comes back to hard work. You just do the hard stuff really hard, and you stay very disciplined. All these little tricks and stuff. Now, some of them might help incrementally, but generally speaking, hard work seems to be the foundation that a lot of guys. I don't want to say they're avoiding, but they feel like they found the big trick. The big trick is getting a massage therapist, a nutritionist, strength and conditioning, all those things.
Yeah, well, this is where the coach has to be military, has to be an asshole. I mean, really, because if not, then with that okay, they had an 8 week training camp. They had great sparring. They had the weight was great. Everything was great about the training camp, and is lost the day of the weigh-in. The night before the fight, he's getting beside just lost the day of the weigh-in. Maybe it wasn't it, but in Emmanuel's mind and in my mind, it would have been exactly it because he had never had that done before. In other words, everything we do in the gym, everything how I give him water, how I give him instructions, how I wrap their hands, how I put Vaseline on them, everything I say, what I say to them is going to be identical to what we do in the fight, pre-fight. We get into the dressing room, we're going to warm up just like we warm up for sparring or to hit the bag. We're going to do everything identical. So now all of a sudden, let's just say Emmanuel was the same way because he kept it simple. Now all of a sudden he's getting a massage where he's never had a massage before. So maybe his legs were dead. I don't know, but I think it's a consistency and a discipline of doing consistent things all the time. And in order to do that, you have to have a system and a plan.
That makes a ton of sense too. That reminds me a lot of like when they condition a guy, a grunt in the military. He's going to be on the front line and he has to shoot, and it's a very dramatic thing and it's stressful. But if you practice it the exact same way over and over and over, they're calm when they do it. It doesn't
There's
mess
no
with their
thinking.
mind. It doesn't. Yeah,
There's no
they
thinking.
just repeat it.
Yeah, act. You act. You don't think about it. You act. Yeah. So again, that's the old-fashioned way. I guess if we go back to the question you had before, that's the old-fashioned way. Instead of
Yeah,
having, and I don't have a strength and conditioning coach in my gym. I don't have a masseuse. I don't have somebody stretching my guys. Why? I've never believed in somebody stretching you because, let's just say right before the fight too, because they don't know you like you know you. I'm gonna teach you how to stretch yourself so that way you know how what your limits are. Somebody pushing on your back and somebody making you do exercises is gonna rip something that doesn't need to be ripped. So you know how far to go. You know how far to take yourself. So I teach them what I want them, how I want them to stretch, and then they at the beginning is 10 minutes. And Gennady used to do 20, almost 25 minutes of stretching before any kind of workout. Why? Because they understand what how their body feels after they do that.
absolutely, absolutely. Um, that's so interesting. So also, I'm reminded there was something you had done in the ring that I was fascinated by when it happened, and this was a lot of years ago. So it was. I should have kept my notes. I'm blanking on his name. It was a French fighter who was fighting Sergey Kovalev for. I want to say he was an IBF.
Mohammedi. Mohammedi.
Exactly. Yes. So he gets knocked down relatively early in the fight, and he comes back to the corner. And when you speak to him, you didn't mention the knockdown, as if it didn't even happen. I was always curious. What was the reasoning behind that?
I will never say anything negative in the corner, ever. I will never ask if you're tired. I will never put that thought in your mind. I'm always going to be positive with you. I'm always going to, because I can't change what just happened. That's happened. I have to go forward. So I will never put any kind of negative thoughts in your head. I will never have anybody say anything that's negative to you around you in the dressing room. Or there's a couple reporters that I refuse to talk to, have my fighters talk to, because they ask questions like, well, did that punch hurt? You idiot. Of course it hurt. All of them hurt. But, but am I going to allow my fighter to have those kind of thoughts in his head? No. We have to go forward. So I never mention negative things in my corners or in my gym.
So, okay, that is okay. Wow. So, and in the fight, though, don't you feel, I mean, I'll be a little bit critical here. Don't you feel like you need to address the knockdown to say, hey, he caught you with this shot because of XYZ?
No, how I'm going to address it is what I want him to do next, or how I want to avoid that. I'm not going to say, don't drop this hand because he's going to hit you again. In his mind, he's going to hit me again as soon as I do that. So I'm going to ask him to do certain things to replace whatever he did that he did wrong. I'm not going to remind him that he got hit with that shot. We both know that he got hit with that shot. I don't need to remind him.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so that makes sense. Another thing, and I always thought this, I never watched it close enough. You understand it way better than I do, but I was watching Triple G versus Lemieux, which was such a great performance by Triple G. Two power punchers, and it was the first time a lot of us really got to see that Triple G can really box. He still cut off the ring. He still took away a lot of angles by just closing in and closing in. But I noticed there were points where Lemieux would fire and Triple G would step back just enough out of range and then keep closing. So he's still doing the same attacking style, but he was good enough to sort of rebuild his momentum and not get hit. What is it, all that to say, what do a lot of us not understand about that style? Closing in on a guy, cutting off the ring, attacking.
Okay, when we first started, when he first came to my gym, he and I spent a lot of time after hours, after everybody was gone, in the gym, going over. I don't know if you are familiar with cutting horses. You know what a cutting horse is in the rodeo?
No.
A cutting horse is actually they're very expensive. But anyway, a cutting horse is a horse that there's a rider, but the rider seldom uses his hands on the horse. He uses his legs. And there's 10 calves, let's just say, in a corner, and they put a flag or a ribbon on one of the calves, on one of the heads. And the horse is supposed to cut that calf out of the herd. So he moves this way, he moves that way, he moves this way until he corners that calf by itself, and all the rest of the herd is gone. So we worked on cutting off the ring by having that concept be followed. In other words, don't go straight forward because he's going to skip on you. You go forward and to the side and forward to the side. So all of a sudden now you're closing the ring off on him. He did it extremely well, but he was an extremely intelligent fighter. I mean, not all of them are going to be able to do it the way he did it, but that was the concept, to be able to cut off the ring. And I've always felt that my fighters always have presence. In other words, I'm in front of you, and I'm going to be in front of you and touch you, and you're going to feel me. And when I need to get out of range, I just take a step back. I've never believed in pivoting. You know how guys want to, amateur coaches want to say, pivot, pivot. I've never believed in pivoting. I believe in moving, sliding, shifting from right-handed to left-handed. So all those things you work on in the gym, and it's perfected by making sure that they understand on the video what they were doing wrong and what they were doing right. But that was a special guy, though. I mean, it's not everybody's going to be able to do the things that he did. I was fortunate to have landed him, but he was very intelligent.
Now, the cutting horse concept is you just show them videos of it and say, hey, you
Yeah,
see this?
yeah.
This
The
is the
concept. It's the
process.
concept of cutting out something, of cornering
Yeah.
somebody. And you don't have to show them a lot. 2 or 3 videos, and the concept is there. Yes, he moves forward. The horse is doing it by itself. The rider has not the reins. He's got his legs, but the horse is like moving forward, moving side. Watch it on if you get a chance on YouTube. And the concept is that you're closing all exits, and you're closing in, going side forward, side forward, side forward, and you're always on a forward movement, but forward and to the side that you're trying to cut off.
Is there? I'm really digging in now, but like, is there a process to train that in camp where perhaps it's just cutting off the ring without throwing punches to see if they can angle a guy and stay in front of him?
Oh, absolutely. Everybody in the gym, we always had something we're working on every day. We don't just box. Anybody can throw punches. we're working on
Yeah.
something. And the fighters don't necessarily always know what you're working on. You're not going to sit there and explain this is what we're going to do today. You just ask them to do it and ask them to do it and ask them to do it, and that's how you develop it. If you start to explain to them what you're doing, then it's not going to work because they're going to start thinking about it too much. No, but this is what I want you to do. I want you to take a step this way, take a step this way, then you take a step this way. When you get them in the corner, I want you to slide over. If you watch Julio Cesar Chavez, some of his fights, especially the one against Rosario late in the fight, he's doing exactly that. He's stepping over 6 inches, stepping over to the side 6 inches, and has a better angle to his shots. So I think you have to be consistently moving and consistently practicing the things that you're trying to improve.
Absolutely. So, gosh, I had so many questions, and now I'm so into it, I'm kind of forgetting the things I was going to ask.
That's all right.
So this is actually one I thought about this morning. So I was thinking about us doing this interview. This is a little bit random, but do you feel when Triple G and Canelo fought? I'll just focus on the first fight. Do you feel that he ever actually hit Canelo flush in that fight, or do you feel Canelo was able to really roll off a lot of those punches?
I think both of those great fighters, Canelo and G, hit each other with good shots, but not the good shot.
Yeah.
Not the not that one that puts people away because they were so talented. Canelo's very talented, so was G. Uh, the first fight I thought we won. The second fight, my plan was, and if you're a judge, you're gonna judge the fighters as you've always seen them fight. But for some reason, in the second fight, Gennady in the press just told him that he couldn't box. He wanted to prove everybody wrong. He had a great jab, but as a judge, when you're watching Canelo come forward and the other guy going back, Canelo's winning.
Unfortunately,
So
they didn't do that in the first fight. you
yeah,
know.
yeah. Golovkin was going forward in the first fight, and Canelo was going forward in the second fight because Golovkin wanted to throw a jab. He threw great jabs. I mean, gosh, he controlled the fight with a jab. But when a judge sees a fighter backing up, I think mentally, because you've seen Gennady just press, and all of a sudden now he's the one backing up. Maybe he's losing. Maybe he feels the pressure. Maybe the other guy's winning. So I think that in his mind, he felt like he needed to prove to everybody that he could box. Listen, the guy had 350 amateur fights, and you saw the Lemieux fight. The guy can box. The guy's intelligent. The guy
Yeah.
has great legs. He can box. So I think that that's where we went wrong. Or if you look at the corner in the third or fourth round, I whispered into his ear. I said, "Gee, we can't box this guy. We have to fight this guy. We have to fight this guy. You have to press him. You have to." And unfortunately, we didn't do enough.
Yeah. I don't know. I remember that. I thought that this. I'll be honest. I thought in the first fight, when I first watched it, I'm a huge Triple G fan, and I love Canelo. I respect him a lot, but I was rooting for Triple G. I was really upset to see him lose. I thought he controlled it. Everybody else said the same thing, on TV and around the globe. But when I rewatched it and I really scored it, I could have seen 6 rounds for each of them. It was close, but I could have seen it. In the second fight, I felt like that was closer to a draw and leaning a little bit more towards Canelo, but still like right there in the middle. So,
Yeah, well,
and
well, go back and watch the seventh round of the second fight, and tell me who wins that round. And Steve Weisfeld, who in my opinion is one of the best judges in the world, had it for Canelo, and that was probably our best round in the second fight, the seventh round. So I think it was the
I
seventh round.
gotta.
Yeah, but again, it's a subjective judging. If you don't do enough, it was two great fighters fighting each other. They both brought things out in each other that nobody else could have brought out. Um, but I was happy that we were able to create the kind of history that we did. Unfortunately, this game has a habit of crowning certain guys. Chavez in Vegas, De La Hoya in Vegas, Mayweather in Vegas, Canelo, so it has a habit of crowning certain guys, and maybe it's for the business. I don't know. If you remember the first fight, the lady had it 118, 110. So what does that tell me? I don't want to be a conspiracist, but was I not supposed to win this fight or what?
Well, and there are other things you can look at too. Has she, does she get a lot of work from a certain promoter who she'd like to continue? You know what I mean? And I'm being a conspiracy theorist. I don't know, and I can't say.
But you know what, though? I said at the press conference, the second fight press conference, I said, they asked me if I was mad if I would disagree with the judges, and maybe I didn't stick up for my guy enough. But I had to say what I believe is the truth. I can't go and criticize the judges because what if next week another one of my fighters fights and I get it the opposite way? Am I going to say that to take it away from my guy and give it to the other guy because my guy lost? So I can't be a hypocrite. I got to
Yeah, but
say.
that scorecard was so bad in that first fight, though. I
Correct,
mean, it was
but
outrageous.
okay, what do I say when it's the other way? Do I tell the judge to change it because I think my guy lost? I can't. No,
Yeah, then I mean, if they made the right decision. I
yeah,
don't. I see what you're saying. I see what you're
yeah,
saying, but they can make the right decision for the
yeah,
other guy too, and
yeah.
you accept it.
But again, I think that this boxing game has its stars and has its like predetermined kind of in a way, not really, but in a way. Uh, Obviously, a Kazakh is not going to make the impact that a Mexican redhead that fights the way that he fights, like a real Mexican styles. So I understand the game.
Yeah, and imagine if Triple G didn't cross over like he did. I
Right,
mean, if he was more of a relatively unknown boogeyman, he crossed over
right.
well, man. He got a lot of fans locally and in Mexico. But
Yeah.
I will say this: I do think Canelo is supposed to be the face of boxing. There's just no question about it. He's carried that banner
Absolutely,
for many
absolutely.
years after that. Yeah, but and Triple G's older. He's older at the time. That was really like going to be his one big crowning fight, or two, or I guess three if you want to
Yeah.
count that. But that was going to be it for him. Similar to Lomachenko with Haney. Lomachenko probably deserved to beat Haney, but Haney's a young guy and he's
That's
marketable in a lot of
that's
people's
boxing.
eyes.
It's the business.
Yeah,
It's the business. Yeah.
that's I
Yeah.
like to look at fights. Yeah, I don't look at the judges is so crazy, but I don't actually look at fights based on the judges' scorecards. I stopped doing that when I thought that Kovalev had beat Andre Ward pretty decisively, and he had the knockdown, and they gave it to Ward, and I remember thinking it was really unfair. But then I thought I still watched a great fight. This fight wasn't any more or less great because somebody scored it one way or the other. So you try to just appreciate a really good fight. And that first
Yeah.
fight between those two was a great, great fight.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I
try not to
had
let
a
that.
young Yeah, I had a young man named Dennis Shafikov at the same time that I get probably 2014, 15, and we go to somewhere in Michigan. We fought Jamal Herring, and it happened to be the Fourth of July weekend, the 2nd of July, and Jamal Herring was undefeated, two tours in Iraq, just a veteran, just a great young man, and they bring us out to the holding area, and we're there like 10, 15 minutes, and they're doing this big documentary on Jamal Herring, um, and I'm thinking in my mind, I'm watching this documentary like 50 minutes long, and I'm thinking, in his hometown, Fourth of July weekend, veteran, Marine veteran, and I'm gonna have this little Russian here just kick the shit out of him because I knew that we were gonna beat him. And sure enough, we stopped him in the 10th round, and just we dropped him once or twice, and just won every round, just beat him up, and I felt so bad, but there's no way they could take it from us because we stopped him.
So do you make that decision to go for the knockout when you
Oh,
know you
absolutely.
know the judges?
I want to knock out in every fight. I want to win every round, and I want to knock out in every fight. I don't care if it doesn't matter to me if it's one punch or you just beat on somebody and beat on somebody and beat on somebody until they succumb. But I don't want to leave it up to the judges. I never want to leave it up to the judges. But I don't tell my guy I want to knock out. What I say is I want 3 minutes of 3 minutes. I don't want any rest. And if you see the fight, if you ever get a chance to go back and see the fight, you'll see Shafikov going from the first bell to the last bell 100%. And that's the way I like my guys to fight. That's why we're in Big Bear, and that's why we train like we do, and that's why we've had success because I do want to win every round if possible.
And that sort of leads to, like you said, is that process of doing it the same way every time. If you're attacking all the time, you're going
All
for
the
the
time.
knockout regardless.
Right, right.
Awesome. Well, I know you're a busy guy. You got a lot going on, so I don't want to keep you too much longer. But it is a dumb question. If it is, you tell me, hey, it's dumb. You don't have to answer it. But I read recently that you and Triple G, there was a bit of like an olive branch sort of extended where he sent a fighter to you and said, Abel's great. You should work with him. He'll do very well by you. Does there is there more of a coming together between you two now, where you're sort of reconnecting, or could that ever be what it was between the two of you?
I don't think so. I think that when in 2019 when it came apart, it wasn't so much because of Triple G. It was because of the new advisors that come into the fold when they think it's you're in their best interest. And I understood that. I understood that. Of course I was upset, pissed off. I put in 9.5 years of 24/7. It seemed like. Um, but I understood. I understood because uh, pressures that he had on him from other direction. I'm not going to go into detail about it, but just
No.
pressures.
Yeah.
And uh, a young man, Saturday night met off, was training in a gym, and since he's Kazakh, Gennady was able to talk to him, and Gennady didn't ask him to, but suggested that he come and see me, and maybe his style and my style could mix together. And I've been working with him, but I don't think, at least not in the near future anyway, that it'll be we're gonna go have dinner or anything like that with G. Yeah, I believe he's in Florida right now. He's got a young son, maybe 15 or 16 now, who's an exceptional hockey player. And he's got a lot of friends in Florida that are on the hockey team down there, so I'm sure he's getting some great schooling. But no, I wish him all the luck, and I like what he did with the amateur program. Though I like the fact
Yeah.
that he is involved in that, and he's smart enough. He's an intelligent person, and smart enough to understand the doors that he's got to open for this boxing to be included in the Olympics. His amateur background and the fact that he fought internationally in as many fights as he had, I think was a big plus for him, and I'm glad that he's in that position.
Here's a I'll make it more lighthearted. Is it weird seeing him kind of a little bit more round in the waist these days?
No, but I just hope that unlike Manny that wants to come back and fight, I just hope that he doesn't. I think that he's so intelligent and did so well. He's got a great family. He's got 3 kids. I just hope that he continues doing what he's doing for the game without being physically in it.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I will say, if you want to cut this stuff out, that's fine. I just wanted to know that part. I always hoped you two would come back together at some point, but I also want to say, from a guy who's been in corporate America, for all my career, I completely understand what you mean. When somebody comes in and they try to change something that you worked so hard for so long, and they'll just flip it on its head with no consideration.
Right.
And I think Jim Lampley said it best when no, was it Nokia or US? It was some phone company essentially bought out HBO, and he said he knew right away when he met the people from there that it was over. HBO wouldn't have boxing, and he made a remark. He said the worst thing that can happen to boxing is non-boxing people getting involved in boxing. And honestly,
Exactly.
you could say that about a lot of different things.
Yeah, exactly. But it wasn't only me. The promoter got demoted. The managers were in trouble with them. And fortunately and unfortunately, there wasn't other people. It was just Gennady and I, and the promoter and the managers. So there wasn't an assistant that got axed either. There was any of that. It just they just went in a different direction. And if you look at his career after that, if you watch the fights after that, he didn't look as devastating in the fights after that. And in the Canelo fight, it was more of a they knew each other and they were um, just fighting just to make it the third one. So he was a lot damaged in some of those fights. His face didn't look like it did against Canelo, and he got hit a lot more with Canelo than he did with those fights. So all those little things like that hurt because I had him for 9.5 years. It's like our children. I'm 70 years old now, and he was a young man, and so it hurts to see somebody that you care for hurt.
Yeah, I understand. I understand what you mean. Um, well, you never know. You really never know. I'll leave it
No,
at that.
yeah, no. I mean, I would definitely embrace him if we ever had a chance. I mean, he's my child. Come on.
That just made my day, man. I love hearing that. I love hearing that. Well, Abel, have a great show. Go win the fight, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I can't tell you how much I respect you and what a fan I am of yours. And this meant a lot to me, man. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for the interview. Have a
Thank you,
great
sir.
day. Okay, bye
You
bye.
too. Bye.